Hello. Hello, one viewer. Danilo. All right, so... Oh, I guess I should probably have this close by. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the countdown stream. I have a upcoming video in about an hour, and we're going to count down the time to that video's release by me answering some questions from you guys and generally hang out with you until the video goes live, and then I suggest you guys all watch it and enjoy it, and then we'll call it a week. So what are you guys up to? How are you guys feeling? Just gonna tweet out the thing now. Captain Picard. We have Brady Crawford, Stu Gardner, and Danilo. So, Stu Gardner coming from Northern Ireland. I imagine because I'm doing this video at 1 in the afternoon, my time, as an Eastern person, that means that it would be in the middle of the day for people on my continent, and unless you're me, you don't get to be available at 1 in the afternoon. So I know that a lot of Europeans are going to be here because even on the Pacific coast, I think it's like 10 a.m. So everyone's busy. So I have a video coming out in just under an hour, and it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a video. It's going to be part 4 of the America's Before Columbus series. And it's finally the one where the long-awaited video where I talk about Mormon archaeology and Phoenician contact theories and all that kind of stuff. And so we're going to be doing that pretty soon. And it's also the first video in my next batch. So in the past, as you guys probably know, I film at the YouTube space, and I tend to write and record like 5 videos at a time. And so this is no exception. So this is so what you guys remember with me with the like multicolored stuff in the background, that was filmed back in September. And the Paladin video, the one that I actually did, is the last one in that batch. And now I've went to the YouTube space last week. Yes, last Wednesday on November 1st, and recorded another batch of videos that should last me until the 7th of December. And there's a really funny thing about it, and that is this is going to look a little weird compared to my other my last 2 visits, because I had to use a different studio than I normally use. And so let me tell you a little bit about the YouTube space in Toronto. So Toronto's YouTube space has 2 studios. One that they keep kind of blank, that you can set up any way you want, and it just kind of works. And that's the one that I usually film in, but it was occupied pretty much book solid because like fall is when they're really busy. And then the other one, they decorate about once a quarter. And so every quarter they have this like rotating set they sign up. And my video, all my videos were filmed in the designed set because it was the only one I could get that day. So and it's set up to look like the inside of a TTC car, which for you guys who aren't Torontonians, the TTC is are public transit systems. So it looks like a subway car. And I didn't want to like lean into that because I was thinking of making my videos all sound like I'm trying to talk to somebody while I'm on the subway. But I decided not to because only people who live in like really big cities would do that. But yeah, all the videos look like I'm sitting on the subway, like just talking to the camera. It will be a little weird, but it is what it is. But yeah, the next 5 videos are all shot, so now I'm just going through the process of editing them and doing all the drawings and all that kind of stuff. I have next week's already finished, so if you're a patron, you actually can watch those, and then we'll probably work on a few more after that, because I still have today's goal is to go and fix up the podcast, the So That Happened podcast. Functional mass transit, what is this thing you speak of? Trust me, it's only half functioning. But also, it's much better than like living in the suburbs where, you just have like maybe a half-assed bus system, or, as I've learned in the Americas, no mass transit at all. But yeah, Toronto has a system of buses and subways and streetcars that we use to get around, and it's a lot of fun. But I'm going to be looking like I'm on the subway. So I'm completely open to taking some questions. Other than that, I will just blab about the upcoming video for a little bit, which is, as I said, it's a part 4 of my little Columbus series, and it's all about Semitic contact theories. So, yeah. People, basically Arabs, and any claims that Arabs and Jews came to the Americas before Columbus. And there's not a ton, but I got to talk a little bit about each one, especially the Mormon claim, which, for those who aren't aware, the Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, write about in their book that Jews came to the Americas around the year 600 BC. And do I get monetization? I do get monetization. So here's the thing about monetization. I do have maybe like 2 or 3 videos that have been like reviewed and rejected, and they are completely demonetized. They're not the surprising ones. They're my one about ISIS, my one about the September 11th conspiracy theories, and I think those are the only 2. There might be another one, but it's escaping me at the moment. I have a lot of videos because my channel basically demonetizes, or my channel basically gets demonetized by YouTube. Every video gets demonetized on as a rule. And so every single video I release has to be manually approved. Every single one. And so I have to like wait for them to approve it. And usually they approve my video before it goes live, but not all the time. And so sometimes I have demonetized videos on release day, which sucks. But I also have a bunch of demonetized videos that I sent out for manual review, but because they're not going to hit the 1,000 views in 48 hours or whatever threshold that they need for monetization, they're never going to get looked at. And so they're always in this quasi like waiting for the reviewer to look at it, and they have been for several months. But typically my videos, when I upload them now, are demonetized, the little yellow $sign, and then I have to get them manually approved. And as long as I upload my videos about a week in advance, they're usually approved and monetized by the time they actually go live, but not all the time. So, all right, would love to have something like a good transport system. Living in the countryside is a real stress when you don't have a car driving license yet. Yeah, I maybe not in the countryside, but before I moved to Toronto, I lived in a city called London, Ontario. and I lived in a sort of suburb where there was no grocery store within a kilometer. There was no restaurants, bars, anything that didn't require like getting on the bus and taking a taxi or something like that. And I didn't have a car. And so I had to get on the super unreliable bus system every time I wanted to, go out to the pub or something. And while that's not nearly as bad as it is in some places, it still was very isolating. Now, a lot of places, especially in the United States, they don't have any bus system at all. Like I have American in-laws, and anytime I go to the United States for like the holidays, they live in this suburb where if you want to go to anything that's not within like 2 blocks, you have to drive, because not only do they not have a bus system, period, some of the streets don't even have sidewalks. So like, this is the thing I notice every time I go to the US is like, there's a lot of streets that just don't have sidewalks. And it's like, how do you expect people to get around this place? Yeah. And especially because us millennials don't really have the money, because we're all poor, because we're all working contract jobs for half the price that our parents are making at our age, then yeah, we don't really have money to do things like get a car and drive around. What's your opinion about the released JFK papers? It seems like they're rather unsurprising. So the JFK assassination conspiracy theories thought that they were hiding all sorts of like stuff that they were doing, but what it turns out is that a lot of what they were covering up was embarrassing secrets about their holes in their security network, and trying to figure out what one of their, like, all sorts of different things about their assassination missions that they had going on at the time. And that makes sense about the things that they covered up, because they have to do with Cold War stuff and a lot of that kind of black ops action that the United States doesn't like to admit that they do. So it's a lot of like references to current assassins they had in Cuba who were trying to, take out Fidel Castro or something like that. And that's not great. Not great at all. And I imagine that the ones that they are still sitting on are due to regime change policies they've had in countries where it was successful. And so there might be governments that are currently in power in certain countries, probably Latin America especially, where assets they're referring to were involved with the toppling of the previous government in order to put them in place, because they're a US friendly government. And that happens a lot in American history. It was basically the bread and butter of the J. Edgar Hoover CIA and FBI, and the kind of the time in which the secret services of the United States were basically seeding the conspiracy theories about the deep state. And also I got props. Thanks you, Sir Zhao Zhao, for having a stream with ContraPoints. She was an amazing guest to have, and I am very happy about how well that stream went. If you guys want to see that, it's unlisted on my video list, but if you go to my channel page, so if you go to stepbackhistory.com, you'll find my channel page, and I do have a playlist on the page there that is all of my subscriber appreciation day streams. And the ContraPoints one will be the last one on that list. Karishma, have you considered joining a network to grow your channel? I have never heard of if you're talking about like an MCN, I've been emailed by at least one several times, and I've never heard of anybody getting involved with an MCN that didn't regret it. And it sounds like most of the time all they do is take a bunch of your money and then don't give you anything in return. And I'd never heard about them growing your channel, but at the moment it's just organic growth. I don't really, I've never really seen any MCN that wasn't like just openly predatory. especially for, smaller channels like myself. She wasn't catching. I'd love to hear more about your experience on YouTube thus far. All right, Gordon Thorpe. Um, I've been on YouTube for probably about 10 years, 10, 11 years at this point. I think I started my YouTube channel back in 2007, my first one, which I was probably most active in like 2007, 8, and 9, and then I kind of started to back off on that. I was back in like the days when YouTube was more like a place. It was more like a social place where you made videos and had video responses, and it was more of a thing. I was on there for quite a while until basically university ruined it, and I just kind of disappeared. And then I went on to do my history degree and my master's degree and all that stuff, and then partway through my history MA, I thought I would try to bring the channel back, but then my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, basically was saying, like, your content's not very good. Like, if you're going to do something, you should do it. You should do it like with all of your effort, or just don't bother. You're not getting anywhere by making like daily content that sucks. So I shut down that channel. And this would be like in 2015. I shut down the channel. Basically, I haven't made a video on it since. And then I was basically done with YouTube and focusing on my work. And I was doing my like MA and everything like that. And in the summer of 2015, the idea for Step Back came up, that I was like, oh, there's like no education content on YouTube for history, like at all. And I was just about to start my PhD. And so I kind of started to realize that, oh, like there's these animated channels like the Alternate History Hub and CGP Grey that are good. They're popular. They do well. They're educational. But they also don't look like they have a high barrier to their art. And so I actually managed, I don't know how I did this, to get Cody from the Alternate History Hub to answer my emails. And we had a Skype call in the summer of 2015 where he and I bounced back and forth ideas about what my channel would be. And he gave me a lot of really good advice. And I started Step Back History probably in August of 2015. And then my first video came out in September. And ever since then, I've just been having a grand old time ever since. Step Back's been on anything that I could have ever imagined. And to the point where now, going full time is on the horizon. I am currently in my PhD area of funding, but that runs out in spring of 2019. And in 2019, I am hoping, fingers crossed, that when 2019 comes, around April of 2019, I'll be able to be making enough on Step Back that will cover my costs. And we'll see where we go from there. At the moment, though, I just kind of keep going. Esther G, super happy you decided to start Step Back. Thank you. Thank you, Esther. Your video on the Girl Scouts was fascinating. Thank you, Esther. Oh my goodness. That is one of the videos that was a real disappointment to find out that no one was watching. I got really sad when I put a lot of effort into that Girl Guide video because the Girl Guides are a big part of my life. I'm not a Girl Guide, obviously, but my mom was a Girl Guide leader. My wife was a Girl Guide leader. My sister was a Girl Guide. Lots of people I know were involved with it, and I think that the Girl Guides are a really good organization and really, really good for helping young ladies become great people. And I wanted to make that video because I found out about how they had such a huge involvement in the Second World War. And I even got H. Bomber Guy to make a video, or to make like a little cameo for it. And I had my friend Inés do a little thing for it. And I was really excited to get that one out. And then it didn't perform as well as my other videos do. And that's one of the ones that I'm like, I sit and I'm like, that's one of the ones that I really wish had done better. But that's the internet. You can't really control these things. But it's really great. You've managed to put together a solid channel in the last couple of years. Thank you, Gordon. That's very, very kind. I've sometimes taken a little bit of an ego beating because some of the channels that I started, like I kind of grew with, have since shot way ahead of me, like Patrick and Name Explains, and Will Fox of Fox Cousins, then Political Junkie, now The Curiosity. And so like I've always kind of felt like I haven't really had the rocket ship that everyone else has, but I'm still really grateful for how many people have come out to watch my stuff, and I'm really excited to try and build it up from there. And I think that I have a lot of really great people helping me succeed, and I look forward to the future. And you know what? It would be a very Tristan thing to do, to have step back, be a success, but not get any lucky breaks. Just pure tenacity and force of will, slowly building that audience. I can tell you, like that's kind of the story of my life. I've basically been a failure at doing anything inspiring and amazing that has ever impressed people, but I've been a person who has just banged my head against things until they worked. And I'm not talented, I'm not skilled, I'm not particularly clever. I just kind of keep doing stuff until something works. The best new book, history book of 2017. I will probably say that my favorite one that I've poked around so far is Cannibalism, A Perfectly Natural History, which sort of bridges human and animal science and talks about cannibalism as both a natural phenomenon and also as a human sociological phenomenon. And I think that that's really important because in kind of the history of, in big history, like, you know, kind of decentralizing humans from our overall historical narrative and looking at us as part of a natural ecosystem and as, you know, an animal within the animal kingdom and everything like that, I think is really important. And also it was really interesting and it came out with a lot of really cool stuff, and it's about cannibalism, which is kind of neat. So yeah, Cannibalism, A Perfectly Natural History is probably my favorite one so far. Although I have to say, I haven't read a ton of, when it comes to books, I'm not a person who really is good at keeping up to date. I'm always reading books that are like 5, 6, 7 years old, and I never get to read the new trendy thing as soon as it comes out. And Doughboy DeVito is here. Have you ever thought about doing a video about why Americans have a different definition of liberal than the rest of the world? That would be a good one. I'm not. I mean, it comes from the Cold War, and it comes from the like Red Scare. Let me just get my trusty. I know I have a pen here somewhere. Yeah, that's a pen. All right, I'm going to write this down. So, the word liberal in American discourse. So, the reason why liberals have become synonymous with all left-wing politics in the United States is because during the Red Scare, basically anybody who was associated with any sort of socialist or communist movement was blackballed and destroyed. And for a while, it was actually illegal to be a communist in America. And so a lot of people who were involved with far left movements either had to disavow it, no longer say, like kind of like no longer associate with those people, or they had their careers destroyed. And it happened with a lot of people. And so socialism became a word that you just couldn't be. While like the rest of the world, that didn't happen. And so you have a lot more countries where being a socialist is just being left wing. But now Americans don't really have a left wing, and that's why there's basically no left wing in American politics. I think that'd be a good name for a video. Why is there no left wing in American politics? There you go. So Doughboy DeVito, thank you for that idea. I love the Girl Scout video too. Do you have a favorite YouTube channel other than your own? I have tons of YouTube channels other than my own I love. Off the top of my head, This Exists, which is a YouTube channel that investigates weird internet subcultures. It's really good. I actually just met with the creator of This Exists yesterday. We went out for beers. It was really fun. I'm I'm trying to think of another YouTube channel that off the top of my head. I really love Caitlin Dougherty, the Ask a Mortician channel. That one's really good. I think that she does a really good job, does some really cool history stuff. There's, of course, the wonderful history work being done by friends of mine, like The Cynical Historian, Mr. Beat, The Alternate History Hub, and I love the work Extra Credits is doing. I haven't watched their Frankenstein video yet, but I really want to. So extra Credits, another really good one. But I feel like those are all really safe and easy bets. I also watch a lot of D&D channels because that's something that I'm really into. And I watch a lot of the PBS suite and, Vox's YouTube channel, despite the fact that I have feelings about Vox. Geez, putting me on the level here. Rebecca Watson, who's like a online skeptic, like the last online skeptic actually left on YouTube, and she has some pretty great stuff. I'm really surprised and kind of offended that she has less subscribers than me, and I think that Rebecca Watson always deserves people's love. And ContraPoints, I will drop everything the second a ContraPoints video comes out. I watched your Girl Guides video. All right, we have lots of love for the Girl Guides video. That's awesome. What would you say is your plan for getting your goal of having the channel be self-sustaining and more of a full-time endeavor? So at the moment, I'm kind of, you'll notice in this batch, I'm going to start steering my content to be a little less obscure. At the point that my channel is at, I think that for a long time, I was delving too much into really obscure topics that are not search-friendly. So my plan is to make my content a little bit more search friendly and add my interesting stories as like stories within the big thing. So I'm going to try to find a topic that's more search friendly, bigger things, homework questions, things like that, and then tell a longer video, but then have these stories as part of it. And then I also have a handful of obscure, weird history that I really want to talk about. And I put them in a nice special list that I'm going to save for when I get to 100,000 subscribers. Because then I can feel like I can do a little bit more stuff that's like my pet projects. But I think that I was doing too much weird stuff that no one was doing. Other than that, it's networking, collaborations, trying to get more eyeballs on my channel. I think that from the data I've seen, that is the one weakness of Step Back that really needs to be taken care of, is that Step Back has a huge exposure problem in that people are not finding my videos because they're not search friendly. And because when people find my channel, they like it and they subscribe, but people aren't finding it. And so I really want to try to get my name out onto like influencer sites, like maybe try to get my stuff put on like a big blog or something like that. And I don't know exactly how to do that yet because I'm not super awesome at social media. Grammar is important. Let's eat grandma versus let's eat grandma. Yep. Hello to Spielboss, W.R. Costin. Always a pleasure. Is there a link for the survey? The one in the description box isn't working. I haven't been using the survey as much anymore. I actually think I might take it off because it's honestly like that kind of data-driven stuff. Like it was made a long time ago, and I don't think the questions I'm asking really work anymore. But I usually do look at the responses just to see if anybody has pitched an interesting video idea. And I might do that again at some point. I think I might just, in the future, have a suggestion box for video ideas. I think that would be much more, and I can kind of imply the kind of themes that people like through that. Happy 1 year anniversary of the election of Trump. Yeah, I saw that. I was doing comps during the election. So for anybody who doesn't do who has, done the smart thing and not gotten a PhD, there's a point in your history during your PhD where you do something called your comprehensive exams, where you have to read a whole bunch of books and articles and get tested to basically show that you're well read enough to be considered a PhD student. And I was writing my exam. So I had been reading books for like a year, and I was writing my comprehensive exams, which were like 2 1-week-long take-home exams during the election. And the department was on the fence, actually, about giving us a 1-day extension because everybody who was writing them that day were like traumatized by the event. And I think that like I don't know if it's hyperbole to say, but I do think that I did feel like a slight bit of like just trauma. Like I just felt like completely checked out, and I couldn't bring myself to do any very much work that day. And I was really not productive, and I really don't know how to handle it. The wound was just so like open. Yeah, it was rough. Things are getting better now, but still, yeah, that was a tough day. Why do I keep getting notifications for this channel? Bell is off. Cool stuff, though. Best of luck. Thanks. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're like a non-consensual member of the notification squad. Maybe the best way is that I'll just make my content good enough that you won't feel bad when a notification comes up. That'll be the trick. Do you play Munchkin? I have a couple times, probably like 2 or 3 times I've played Munchkin. I like it. It's a fun game. You should do a video on political assassinations. I'll write that one down too. That's pretty good. I also noticed that my my controversial videos are actually pretty popular, and so some of that stuff will be pretty good. Best overall audiobook in 2017. I haven't listened to any audiobooks. I don't have the money to buy audiobooks or like an Audible subscription or anything like that. Plus, podcasts take up too much time. Just found your channel this month, so I don't know if anyone has done this, but could you do a video on Disney and his company's rise, specifically taking advantage of the political times? That would be awesome. Yeah. Disney. This pen sucks. Disney. That would be a great video idea. I haven't done it yet, but that's a pretty cool one. I won't be able to watch the stream in 7 minutes because biology class starts at 10:35. Today is also the day that 79 years ago, Kristallnacht occurred. That is true, yes. In Germany, November 9th is considered a pretty dark day because this is the day basically where a whole bunch of Jewish homes and businesses were destroyed as part of what's called the Kristallnacht, or the White Night, or whatever. I don't remember, the Night of Broken Glass or something like that, I think it's called. And it was pretty dark time, and is about the rise to fascism and everything like that. A video on socialist movements. Huey Long might be a good video, and I do think that socialism in America could be a trending topic. So socialism in America, because I have been wanting to do a Huey Long video for a long time, but I think that Huey Long is not a name that's like, recognizable, but socialism in America certainly is. It's also, yesterday was the 100th year of the October Revolution. That is also true. So for those who aren't in the know, 100 years ago was the beginning of the Russian Revolution, which led to, well, at least the violent part of the Russian Revolution, which led to the rise of the Soviet Union, where they overthrew the kind of half-baked parliamentary government that the Tsar had put in place when he had abdicated, and basically the beginning of the Russian Civil War. Name your least favorite historical figure. Oh my. There's so many monsters in history. Don't make me choose. Particularly bad one? I don't know. Henry Kissinger. He's one that seems to be made into a hero, but he's kind of a war criminal. I am from Israel, and my grandfather was killed in the Kristallnacht. I am very sorry about that. It was a pretty dark time for everybody, and I hope we don't do it again. This is why we need to stop Nazis. Have you seen Angelina Jolie's First? They killed my father based on the Pol Pot regime. No. But the Pol Pot regime was also pretty bad. The Khmer Rouge and everything like that was a pretty nasty. And I think that's on my list of videos to do once I'm a bigger channel, because it's kind of a cool thing. If time weren't a factor, then audiobooks are available through the library. That is true. Toronto Library Card will help me a lot, but there's so much to listen to, and so many podcasts, and so many YouTube videos. I spent the last 2 weeks listening. The last 2 weeks, I stopped watching my YouTube videos because I was watching Critical Role, the like D&D playthrough series, and now I have like a 300 or 400 video long list I have to slog through to get caught up. And now I'm just like, oh geez, okay. It's rough. Hard times. There's so much media and so little time to ingest it all. So the old website, tristanjohnson.org, if that's on my page, I'm taking that site down because my wife has started a website that is like a more umbrella thing, which is the Square Zero Productions page. So because that website really wasn't doing anything, I just took the video down because it was just costing me money. But if you want, I do have it's not really a blog. It's basically a place where I put step back videos, scripts up with the video. So if you want to read my video rather than watch it for some reason, then that's there is that somewhere. And then Gerald Zirivi showed up. Nice to meet you. That is a horrible tragedy. I'm sorry that the historical tragedy took. I agree. That is sad. If you liked Critical Role, check out the podcast Adventure Zone. The McElroy brothers and their dad play an hour of D&D per episode. I've already listened to all of the Adventure Zone. I basically started listening to Critical Role because I finished the main arc of the Adventure Zone and I was desperate for more D&D. So I started watching Critical Role. So I different order. I've been listening a secondhand time, The Last of the Soviets. That is some heavy listening right there. I can only listen to so much per day. I can imagine. See you later, Doughboy DeVito. Yeah, so The Last of the Soviets. That does remind me, I do have a friend named James in London. And last summer, like he actually, he's a tanky a little bit. He's kind of like, I think he's kind of like moved away from his tanky tendencies, but one of the things he did last summer is he went on like a backpacking trip around Eastern Europe. And one of the places that he needed to visit and he went to is Transnistria, which is a small part of, I think, Belarus or Lithuania. And it's a self-declared sovereign state that is still clinging to the old Soviet model. And so they still have like a hammer and sickle flag and try to keep things going. But it was, he said it was quite an experience. All right, 27 minutes until my next video comes out. For anybody who is joining the stream right now, the video that's coming out is going to be about, it's going to be part 4 of my Who Discovered America series. So there is a series I've been doing about theories that people have posited about people who made it to the Americas before Columbus. The first one, I showed the ones that actually had some verifiable evidence behind them, i.e. the Viking landing and the Polynesian contact theory. And now through the last like 3 episodes, so episode 2, 3, and now 4, are kind of going into the more crackpot ones and why they don't make sense. And I've been like focusing on like continents basically. So number 2 was about China and Japan. Number 3 was about, I believe it was about Europe. So it was about like claims that like Columbus actually made it to the Americas before on a previous journey, and that that Native Americans, especially Inuit people, had actually made it to Europe before the Europeans had made it to the Americas, and all that kind of stuff. And now, Moldova. Transnistria is in Moldova. Okay. And number 4 is going to be about thoughts that, or theories that people came from the Middle East, basically like Semitic-speaking people, so like Arabs and Jews. And I focus on 3 specifically. One is the Mulan P theory that Arab traders made it to the Americas based on some Chinese writings about Arab traders. Then the second one's about Phoenicians and how Phoenician traders might have made it to the Americas based on some weird rocks that turned out to be, well, I'm not going to spoil it. And the third one I'm going to talk about in that video is Mormon archaeology, which is the Mormon claims that the Nephites and the Lamanites, two Jewish groups that were mentioned in the Book of Mormon, came to the Americas and are basically the ancestors of the Native Americans, and that Jesus came after he was resurrected and all that kind of stuff. So that is the topic of the next video that will be coming out in 20 minutes. So I'm going to put you all to that as soon as it goes live. Your great-grandfather was a cavalry officer. He fought in the biggest offensive against Germany until 1939. Or until 41. Okay. A video about the ancient astronauts. I think I have that on my list, but that is definitely what I want to do. So ancient astronauts. I think that the ancient astronauts video has been, and it's another one of those videos that has been on like the periphery of my sites for a long time. And, you know, someday the ancient astronaut video is going to come out and it's going to be awesome. It's a lot. And unfortunately there's kind of like an like kind of verbosity problem where like there's so many ancient astronaut theories and they're all like going to need their own research and their own debunking, that to the point where it almost gets overwhelming. Like there's an entire TV show that tries to make the argument. So I'm going to have to like sit back and really think about how do I like from a principles perspective work this out. The big things that I would probably talk about in it is that it's kind of a lot of the theories are like based around this primitive civilization didn't have the sophistication to do this, therefore aliens. And most of the time it's a pretty racist conspiracy theory because they would never say that like, oh, look, the castles in Europe were built with so much precision, therefore aliens built the castles in medieval Europe. And it's like, no, because it seems like the only places where they say that aliens must have built something are like indigenous Americans or in Egypt, you know, any place where non-white people are. And I think that that's there's something to that. And then there's also the whole not realizing that there are things that you can do that might not be easy, but they are explainable by you know, means that make sense. You don't have to invoke aliens. So maybe a little bit about Occam's razor, you know. Okay, so the claim that the king of Mali discovered the Americas is actually going to be the theme of the 5th and final video in the Who Discovered America series, which is going to be about African contact theories. So hold on tight. The African one is pretty exciting because there's some really cool stuff in that. Can you recommend a source for Lithuanian history? I have no idea about Lithuanian history. I know that at one point that it was part of a big kingdom with Poland, but that's about it. I'm not an Eastern European expert. So we'll talk about Mansa Musa's predecessors and all that stuff in a future video. Do I have a list of historical idiots? I don't. Ooh, so William J. Scott, I still think you ought to do a video about what exactly Sharia law is. Fox News seems to have no idea and won't shut up about it. Imagine educating Fox News, LOL. William J. Scott III, you are going to be very happy on one day in November. Very, very happy. Whenever I go to visit my grandparents, they were watching Ancient Aliens, just needed to vent. Oh, man. Trust me, I've gotten a lot of Ancient Alien stuff, too. So I feel your pain. So people think that Donikin and the Stonehenge are built by aliens. Yeah, those ones, too. Those come up, and they're basically like, you couldn't possibly hold rocks for 200 or 300 or 400 kilometers without apparently hover technology from aliens. So therefore aliens, like, no, come on. Now I want to start a conspiracy that European castles were built by aliens. I agree, Forrest. Konrad von Hotzendorf, I think, was the worst World War I officer. I'll take your word for it. I'm not a World War I guy. There's a lot of World War I guys out there. I'm always afraid to do any topic that's about like a war, because there are so many people who make like every single minor detail about a war their like life. And so, you know, you'd have to like I can like talk about like social theories and culture and all sorts of stuff, because it's like big stuff and a lot of cool stuff happens. You talk about war and like you will get expectations that you're going to talk about like what one specific person did on like, you know, within like a couple hours on a certain day, and like in-depth descriptions of how rifles work and all sorts of weird stuff that I don't think fits Step Back at all. Also, I'm like kind of a guy who doesn't like war that much, and so I don't really talk about military history all that much. Trump couldn't have been elected without outside help, therefore aliens. Oh man. Russians. Yeah. The whole Russia thing is starting to hit a kind of insanity fever pitch that I'm a little worried about. I don't watch sci-fi shows, but saw a trailer that showed a wall, probably in Egypt, with people with long heads. Wouldn't that just mean there were people who thought highly of elongated heads? Okay, so this is actually a thing that I can speak to a little bit, and that was in some societies, specifically a few in South America and a few in Egypt, actually practiced this strange thing that they would do, where they would put pieces of wood on a baby's head when it was the skull was still soft, and its head would kind of grow in an elongated fashion, and this was considered like a kind of beauty thing. And ancient Egypt practiced this quite a bit, and so a lot of like the kings and stuff of ancient Egypt had these like weirdly shaped heads, and it was a fairly common practice back then. There's a practice of head binding. Yeah, that's what it's called, head binding. There's a lot of idiots in history. G. Wilhelm, Eiffel Tower, aliens did it, of course. The biggest castle in Poland was built by the Teutonic Order. Cool. The Malbork. You sure that the Teutonic Order and not the Swedish chefs didn't build that? Russians, aliens, is there a difference? I'm not saying it was the Russians, but it was Russians. Yeah, my Irish history course. So this comes up. So John O'Brien Gardner is saying that his Irish history course ends up just being one war after another. And I do think that a lot of history courses actually do teach their classes that way. And it's because of a few reasons. One, wars are more dramatic. They have a definitive beginning, a definitive end. They have characters. It has drama, and everybody wants to know about them. And so military history tends to be very, very overwhelmingly overrepresented in most history classes, especially like at the high school level, because they want to just keep teenagers paying attention. So you can't talk about things like culture, society, class, gender, politics, like all sorts of these, like, I would argue, much more important topics that you talk about in history, because every history class just kind of sees everything that happens between wars as just filler before you get to the good stuff. And I think that's not fair. Because I think that actually the best part of history comes out when people aren't destroying each other. Have you ever thought about covering languages? Can you elaborate on that? Because there are some really good channels like Native Lang, for example, that do really good like language focused content. But if you have another angle that you think might need a historian's touch, I'd be open to listening to it. What I'm always fascinated about war is the human element of it, how it's universal. I'd like to think, as like a pacifist, that war isn't universal. It's a thing that we keep thinking is universal. and that we could stop it if we wanted to. We just don't, because of short-sightedness. This is why we're in the lead up to Remembrance Day, and I wear a white poppy most of the time. Yeah, and they also think Spielbass. I'm going to go with Spielbass because that's fun to say. I think that the military overfocus does result in people thinking that history is boring, because it's the military history is the history of, and then this guy did this, and then there's lines on a map of people moving in this direction and doing this and that, and like, it's boring. That is boring history. That is not interesting. There is not cool stuff happening. It is human beings destroying each other in the most efficient way that they can think of. And if you teach history that way, you're going to have a boring history class. And now we have a whole lot of people who think history is boring because they think that history is a litany of memorizing names and dates and battles. And I think that that is so wrong. So wrong. One of the reasons the Commonwealth collapsed is because of Russian meddling. Oh man. What's your favorite part of Canadian history? Ooh. The Riel Rebellion has some pretty fun stories in it. I know I just said how much I don't like war, but the sort of Métis people trying to get a name for themselves, it's pretty awesome stuff. I think that a lot of the stuff that has to deal with Quebec nationalism, because of my French-Canadian background, I think that's what's really interesting about Quebec's strange relationship with the rest of Canada. Any thoughts on making a series about the life of peasants of the working class over the years? It seems like most history is about the ruling class. Actually, that would be life of ordinary. That would be a good idea. I'd have to find some way to tweak it so that it's something that people would, find by searching. But I do think that's a cool idea. I do think that we do ignore most people when it comes to the way that we write about history, because elites just get so much more screen time. Keep learning about Judea and Roman rule, and we finally get to a rebellion. We're like, let's make them study about the causes of the rebellion and about the results, not the war. I think that's actually a better idea, is because like war, like, all right, yeah, then they did a bunch of stuff. They attacked each other, and then somebody won and someone lost. And then we can move on to like the outfall of that. When it comes to like during wars, I actually like studying what kind of stuff is going on while the war is happening and what effect the war has on society and what kind of cultural products, like, what kind of art comes out of it and all sorts of stuff. Ever thought about doing one on the history of music? I do have some ideas for that in the near future. Probably in 2018, there might be some on that. Aryan Christians and how Aryanism spread over Europe. I think I got a bit on that. The story part of history. Forrest, you are very good. Wilfrid Laurier, the Boer War, World War I, Roaring 20s and 30s, World War II, Cold War. Yeah. I think that Canada does have, I think that Canada's history does get really interesting, though, after that. Canada becomes really a country in the real sense of the word after World War II. Specifically, like when Pierre Elliott Trudeau is like standing off against the American president. You have the Suez Crisis, and we have the prime minister, or someone who would become the prime minister, intervening in an international incident. You have Canada's 100th anniversary, where they adopt their actual flag, when we got our for real flag in 1967. You have Quebec nationalism hitting a fever pitch. Like, a lot of interesting stuff in Canada happens in like the late 60s and the 70s, or in the Suez Crisis case, the 50s. Things that make the real life history start to feel like the backstory of the Lord of the Rings or whatever. That's kind of neat. That's a good way to describe it. Look into the ancient city of Banduria off the coast of Peru. I never finished documentary what was on, but they were discovering that war is not universal. Yes, yes. Um, I also like one thing that I think that history classes could do to improve their content is to make history relevant and show why understanding the past is really good for understanding why things are the way they are today. All right. So we are counting down, Trinity, to the release of the Next Step Back video, which comes out in 5 minutes. So, man, this has been a very fast hour. Here in Israel, they do not teach world history, only Jewish history. That's a little sad. Israel could use a little bit of ethnic diversity and diversity training, and maybe some little bit lighter on the Islamophobia and actively colonizing an entire country's worth of people. But that's not your problem to solve. You're just one person. But I actually have as a Patreon stretch goal at some point to do a video about Israel, and as kind of like a way to celebrate my like independence from demonetization, because any video I make about Israel is going to get demonetized. I just know it. I won't be able to help myself. And so I'm going to do a countdown next week too. So the Boer War. What are we talking? Yeah, the immediate aftermath of World War II, if people recovered. I have a video coming out about that in January, I think. Yeah, Newfoundland was annexed in 1949 because the British were no longer going to keep it as a colony, and so they had a referendum on whether to become independent or to join Canada. And joining Canada just barely won. And there's some evidence that, well, not evidence, there's some speculation that there was some meddling on the part of the British government to push Newfoundland into Canadian hands, because they were just trying to offload the colony. They just couldn't afford to maintain it any longer. They say we were learning about colonialism, but it's actually about how the Jews were oppressed during European colonial times. And you guys give me so many good ideas, but then like I can only write so fast. You're trying. Oh yeah. So have you ever tried to make a video explaining the origins and history of the swastika? So you are also going to be very happy in, I think, around the end of December, because I had a Patreon stretch goal of $150 a month that we passed. And so what the reward was for passing 150 Patreon dollars is a video on the origins of the swastika. And that's actually going to be, I'm going to make that video in my next batch of scripts, which I'm writing right now. Yes. College history, university history is really good stuff. And I wish that everyone took it at the post-secondary level, because high school history is kind of sad. Buy a dog. I wish I could buy a dog. I already have 2 cats, and I don't even think my condo wants me to have 2 animals. One day I really wish to have a dog. It's one of my dreams. Trade and money. Trade and money. I could do something like that. Newfoundland. I have to go to Newfoundland at some point. I think I'm going to go next year. I'm going to go see Alonso Mado. Get on my level and you can have all the scripts you could ever want. Oh, man. So we're running out of time. I'm going to talk about the Germans wanted to sabotage the American economy by inflating our currency. They were thinking about counterfeiting $400 billion of American dollars. I did not know this. This is fun. Abyssinia Empire. I don't think you're a real Abyssinian Empire. First of all, the Abyssinian Empire hasn't been around for thousands of years. But secondly, I don't think an empire would have its own YouTube channel. Make a video about Newfoundland. Of course. If only like anybody would have watched that video. All right, so we have just seconds left. I'm just going to grab my get my link ready to go. But the video is going to go live in just a quick moment, and we are going to have a lot of you guys can watch it, and then I can go and drink some water because my throat is starting to kill me. So, oh yes, it is live now. So I'm going to put the link in the chat, and then we are going to close down this stream. So for you guys in the chat, here's a link to the video. It's up. Hope you guys like it. And I hope that you guys like it, share, subscribe. If you haven't, spread it to all corners of the earth. And enjoy it. I hope you guys really enjoy the video because it's a fun one. And I will be doing one of these next week. So if you guys have any more questions that you are just sitting on, just put it in a little text file and wait until next week, because I'm going to try to do this before every single stream that I can, pending that I am actually here when the video comes out. That's the only reason I didn't do it the last 2 weeks. Anyways, peace out, folks.